To my people, once again, welcome to Africa Renaissance channel. Well, today marks a very important day in the history of Tanzania. On this day in 1961, Tanzania was granted independence by Britain. And my people, I believe that Tanzania is one of the most important and consequential country in the history of Africa. And I have various reasons why I believe so. And right before we proceed, do you know that Tanzania has a national anthem that is actually a prayer for the rest of the African continent? That aside, I want to list the various reasons why other African countries have to follow the example of Tanzania, and they have to emulate Tanzania in various areas and sectors if they indeed want to become truly sovereign countries. And one of the reasons why I believe that Tanzania is one of the most consequential African country is the language policy that Tanzania has adopted. Do you know that Tanzania is one of the few African countries that has a local language, which is Swahili, as both an official and a working language in the country? You know, when most African countries were granted independence, most of the countries adopted the path of adopting the languages of their former colonizers as their national and official language. And if I may give an example, if you look at most West African countries, these were countries that were colonized by the French, and they have French as the national language and also the working language in those respective African countries. And in most parts of South Africa, these were parts which were colonized by the British. You find that English is the national language of those countries. For example, a country like South Africa, of course, they have English as the national language. Zambia, in fact, Zimbabwe, most of the South African countries have English as the national language. That's it. Tanzania is the exception in the sense that they didn't adopt the language of their former colonizers, as the national language. They decided right from the beginning that Kiswahili was going to be both the national and official language of the country. And this is why, my people, if you want to settle in Tanzania, you have at least to train yourself in Kiswahili. You have to learn Kiswahili a bit if you don't want to experience problems. Well, I understand that many people speak English in Tanzania, but the main language, the language that is mostly spoken in Tanzania is Kiswahili, and this is an example that other African countries have to adopt if they want to be really sovereign. And the reason why I say this, if you travel to the most prosperous countries in the world, let's say an example of China. China, they have Mandarin as the national and the working language of that country. Countries in the Middle East, they adopted Arabic as the national language in those countries. And these are countries which are very prosperous. And for us, if we want to be prosperous and follow the example, and if we want to be respected in the world, we have to adopt our native African languages as the national language. The second reason why other African countries should emulate and follow the example of Tanzania is the idea of a confederation. Well, currently there is a talk in various African countries, of the need for us to come together, for us to unite, the continent and maybe form one country. And this is one of the reasons why the West African countries of Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger are coming together and forming a confederation. But do you know that Tanzania is the first African country to ever form a confederation? Yes, Tanzania previously was known as Tanganyika. They were basically two different countries. There was the country of Tanganyika and Zanzibar. But now they came together and formed a confederation, and this is why the names were changed. And this is why the country is currently known as Tanzania, because it is a unity between two different countries, that of Tanganyika and Zanzibar. Well, whereas other Africa countries, well, they talk the talk about confederating, and coming together, but they never succeeded in actually, securing unity or uniting any two different Africa countries in a confederation. But Tanzania indeed succeeded in doing so, and this is one of the reasons why, in fact, Tanzania is one of the best, is one of the best examples of how we are supposed to come together as Africans and form, one country. And before I forget, in fact, there were advanced attempts, to unite Tanzania and Kenya. The former president of Tanzania gave a speech to the effect that they had negotiated to unite Tanzania and Kenya and become one country. But as we know, the first president of Kenya was a puppet of the West. So they prevailed on the first president of Kenya, Jomo Kenyatta, not to unite with Tanzania and form a federation, but President Nyerere was for the unity between Kenya and Tanzania. And the other point that I want to talk about is the role that Tanzania played in the liberation of the African continent. As you know, many South African countries won their independence through war. This means that they fought with their former colonizers, so as they could be granted independence. And Tanzania played a very important, a very significant role, not only in training, but also in equipping, the people who are fighting for the independence in those countries. And here I'm referring to countries such as Angola, countries such as Mozambique. You find that the people who are spearheading, the war in those respective countries, they settled in Tanzania for a long period of time to receive their training and also for negotiations so that they could be equipped and, succeed in the fight and struggle for independence back in their home countries. And the other reason why Tanzania stands out is the bold and courageous leaders that the country has. And here I'm referring to leaders such as Julius Nyerere. Julius Nyerere, of course, played a very important role in uniting the country of Tanzania. One of the biggest challenges that African countries experience today is tribalism. But Nyerere made it possible for Tanzanians to see themselves not in the lens of tribes, of different tribes and communities, but see themselves as Tanzanians. So Tanzania is one of the few African countries where you experience minimal tribalism. And this is one of the reasons why Tanzania is excelling, is doing very well today, because the foundation which was set by the first president of Tanzania, Julius Nyerere, was very firm. And the country is united and they see themselves as one. And recently we can talk about President Magufuli. And unfortunately, President Magufuli passed on before he completed his second term. But in terms of in the economic sector, President Magufuli played a very significant role, He made it possible for Tanzania to have sovereignty over its resources such as gold, because previously they used to be mined by multinationals who usually avoided paying taxes, and Tanzania did not realize, the gains from the natural resources such as gold that it had. But Magufuli did his best and made sure that Tanzania, realized benefits from their natural resources such as gold. And today, gold is one of the leading sources of foreign exchange for the country of Tanzania. So once again, happy Independence Day to all the people of Tanzania. I wish all the best for their country, and I hope that Tanzania continues to become a prosperous country countries so that other African countries can indeed emulate the country of Tanzania. And that's all that I have for today. If you want to watch more of this content, make sure that you subscribe to this channel. Goodbye.